exclude this proposed, what's being labeled as rebuttal testimony. My argument would effectively be that, again, the state has a duty under the legal standard that we presented in our memo to present on everything that they have in the case in chief. I believe Officer Rodriguez has been on their witness list since the beginning of trial, and there's no reason why they couldn't have called him in the case in chief. Above and beyond that, this amounts to their second bore expert that's getting qualified, whereas we have not qualified a single bore expert. If the court recalls, Wendell Liu was qualified to testify regarding bore activity. In as much as the proposed testimony at this point is cumulative and it violates the legal standard in terms of what's allowed in rebuttal evidence or rebuttal case, I would submit that the testimony should not be allowed.
Well, we are in rebuttal. Dr. Lawfer testified without providing the parties with a report. He ended up testifying on pig hunting, and provided this is in rebuttal to that testimony, I'm going to allow that.
So, Your Honor, other than saying that he has hunted pig, he provided no details as to anything related to pig activity. And so I'm not sure why it's relevant and why it would be rebuttal. I think the state has offered its rebuttal witnesses relative to that in terms of this not being, the injuries not being consistent with bore activity. It's been allowed to present two more experts on top of their two experts that they presented in trial. Now they're getting to present an additional bore expert on top of the one they presented in trial.
All right, thank you. I will allow the witness to testify, provided it remains in rebuttal to what has been presented, and we'll have the jury run into the courtroom.
We'd be asking for a 104 hearing.
Judge, the 104 hearing would be persons with scientific knowledge or highly technical at a skill or level where the court would have to make a determination whether that's junk science or something the court can reasonably rely on that professional would be testifying in his field. What we have is a layperson who is a pig hunter, so by virtue of his experience as a pig hunter, he'll be testifying to those experiences. So it's not, the state would argue that it's not something that will be subject to a 104 hearing.
This is a preliminary question under Rule 104 of the Hawaii Rules of Evidence, and it goes towards the qualification of a person to be a witness.
The court will have this proceed in front of the jury in the event that the defense has questions with respect to the qualifications of the witness to testify. And that can be brought to my attention. I'll determine whether that needs to be done out of the presence of the jury. All right, so we'll have the jury present. All right, the record will reflect the presence of the members of the jury. Mr. Rivera, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state will be calling Officer Brandon Rodriguez.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. You may be seated. You may proceed with your examination of the witness.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer Rodriguez.
Afternoon.
How long, well, first of all, please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen here.
Officer Brandon Rodriguez, Maui Police Department, currently assigned to Vice Narcotics Division.
And Officer Rodriguez, how long have you been with the Maui Police Department?
Just under 12 years now.
And how long have you been in the Vice Division?
Just about, I think about 6 years now.
And I want to ask you this, do you hunt wild boar or pigs?
Yes, I do.
And when did you begin hunting wild boar or wild pigs?
Probably since I was 10 or 11 years old.
And how did you start? How did you begin hunting the boar or pigs?
Just through family, grandfather, uncles, cousins.
And did you say from 10 years old?
Yeah, about 10 or 11 years old.
Do you still hunt wild boar or pigs?
I haven't for about a year now, so but through my life, yeah.
And are you able to tell us approximately how many times you have gone out hunting for wild boar or wild pigs?
I would say in excess of 100 times.
And when you do go hunting, who do you normally go with?
It's still usually family, yeah.
And you said the last time you hunted was about a year ago or
Yeah,
so?
probably at least a year.
Now, when you go hunting for wild boar or pigs, what, other than the people you're with, what other, I guess, tools or equipment or assistance do you use?
Dogs, we use our dogs to track pigs, knives, firearms.
When you say firearms, what kind of firearms are you referring to?
It's usually 30-30, or if someone has a handgun, we use that too.
30-30, is that a rifle?
Yep, correct.
And do you have experience in tracking wild boar pigs?
Yes,
And what kind of experience would that consist of?
just through the years of hunting.
And when you hunt wild boar pigs, is there, you said you use dogs at first, is that correct?
Correct.
And what capacity do you use the dogs for?
The dogs will track the pig. They'll grab the pig to slow them down for us until we can reach there. Yeah.
Now, in tracking a pig, also Rodriguez, are there certain signs you look for?
Yes.
And can you describe the signs that you look for?
Yeah, we're looking for like feeding areas. We
when you say
call it
feeding
plowing.
areas-
We call it plowing or rooting. It's kind of like an upheaval of dirt in the area, rocks, plants. We're looking for feces, tracks, markings on the trees.
And have you ever encountered such, what you call as feeding areas?
Yes.
Can you describe a typical feeding area that you have encountered during your years as a pig hunter?
Yeah, just that specific area is just a mess. You know, the plants are upturned, the soil, the rocks. You find, like I said, feces. There'll be tracks everywhere. You know, you'll know for sure that this area was trampled by pigs.
Now, is it your experience that is common where pigs or wild boars would feed this scenario that you described?
Objection
Yeah.
asked and
Yeah.
answered.
And,
Objection asked and answered.
you know, move on.
Well, it's not, he's moving on after repeating.
The objection is overruled. The question calls for a different specific area.
Thank you. Now, are you able to tell, based on your experience as a pig hunter or wild boar hunter, are you able to tell whether a feeding area that you just described is a recent feeding area versus an older in time feeding area?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say a specific time, but I could tell you if it was older or newer, you know.
And what's the difference between a newer or more recent feeding area versus one that's older?
For instance, like the plowing or the uprooting, the soil will be fresher, maybe a little moist, versus an older area will be dried out. You can really tell the difference between the two.
And have you ever, in your experience as a hunter, have you viewed or observed, I guess, the object that a wild boar or pig would have fed on?
Yeah.
And what types of objects are we talking about?
It's usually fruit, plants, things like that.
And could you describe the condition of the fruits and plants that you've observed in these feeding areas?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's real messy. You know, it's everything is strewn everywhere. Everything is just trampled, and it's just a real messy situation.
Now, did you assist other detectives or officers with respect to an investigation involving Charlie Scott?
Yes.
And turning your attention to February 15th of 2014, on that particular date, do you recall assisting, I guess, other officers in the search or in the investigation involving Charlie Scott?
Yes.
And what was your role in that?
We're to look for any evidence or clues, and you know, we were assigned to a specific area in the Wailuku area, I believe we call it. Yeah.
Now, prior to February 15th of 2014, had you ever been to the Wailuku area?
Yeah.
Have you ever hunted in the Wailuku area?
Yes.
And what would you have hunted in that area?
Pigs.
And when you hunt in that area, there's a mountainside and the ocean side. And which side would you have hunted the pigs at within that Wailuku area?
It would always be above the road, so mountainside of the road.
Okay, is there a reason for that?
We're not allowed to hunt below the road on the ocean side.
And how often have you gone to the Wailuku area to hunt pigs?
I would say in that specific area, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times.
So were you familiar with that area before you arrived there on February 15th,
Yes.
2014?
Yes, it was.
Now, did you go to, can you describe the area you went to when you assisted other officers in the investigation involving Charlie Scott?
Yeah, it's just it's a heavily wooded area, some mud trails, mud areas. It was below the roadway.
Okay, I'm going to show you what is already in evidence as case exhibits 143 and 144 in the monitor. I've just shown counsel that with his review.
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay, looking at State's Exhibit 143 and 144, do you recognize the area that we're looking at here?
Yes, I do.
And what area is this?
This is the area where some like body jewelry was recovered. This is where I was assigned to as part of the group.
Okay, and then looking at the letters that are depicted in State's Exhibit 143 and 144, do you recall where the body jewelry would have been recovered?
Yes, I do.
And which letter would this correspond to?
I believe it was A on the right side.
Now, is this in State's Exhibit 143 and 144? Is this the same area?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Now, I'm going to blow up one of the pictures. Turning your attention to State's Exhibit 143. And State's Exhibit 143, I'm showing you a enlarged photograph of the bottom portion of a tall, I guess, tree. As a pig hunter, Officer Rodriguez, when pigs are plowing or when they're feeding and they're plowing, do they at times make marks on tree trunks or the trees?
Yeah, they do.
And can you describe the kind of marks that you've observed?
The marks are usually by the boars or the males, usually. You got like scrape marks going across or up and down on the base of the tree, or even as high as they can reach it.
And
Is that this black foundation?
The objection is sustained.
Move to strike the answer.
Granted.
have you yourself observed test marks or marks on trees made by boars?
Oh, yes.
And when would this have been?
Probably most of the time we're hunting.
And what you've noticed, can you describe the markings that you've noticed?
Yeah, it's like it's usually more thicker markings, erratic. You know, it's not uniform at all. You know, it's just kind of like all over the place.
And with these markings, so you described how a scenario would look like when a wild boar or pig would be feeding. Do these markings on the trees you just described, is that part of the, have you seen that where a wild boar or pig would have been feeding?
Yeah, where they're feeding. Sometimes it's not even where they're feeding either. They're just marking areas.
And looking at State's Exhibit 143, which has been enlarged, there's some, I guess, markings on the tree area. Do you see that there?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us whether or not the wild boar, wild pig markings that you have observed as a pig hunter, is it similar or is it different than what we're seeing here in this large photograph 143?
It's definitely different.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
It's definitely different.
And what are the differences?
Those are like, you know, clean cuts and.
You're referring to the enlarged photo in 143?
Oh yes, correct.
Have you ever observed I guess, wild pig or wild boar, I guess, feeding on anything or having fed on anything other than, I guess, fruits or roots or plants?
You know, in my experience, no.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you, officer.
Cross-examination.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did have more questions.
Please.
When you were in this, did you assist in conducting a search in this New Wailuku area that's depicted in State's Exhibits 143 and 144?
Yes, I was.
Okay, I forgot to ask you this. Did you observe any sign of plowing or feeding by any wild pig or wild boar within that area?
Not in the area I was, no.
Okay. And the area you were was around this tree area?
Yes, it was.
Did you observe any pig tracks in that area?
No, I didn't.
Did you observe any plowing as you described?
No, I didn't.
And as a pig hunter, is that something you would have observed if it had been in that area?
Absolutely.
Did you observe any pig feces in that area?
No, I haven't. I did not.
Is that something you would have observed?
Absolutely.
Now I go for the questions. Thank you, Officer Rodriguez.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, officer.
Afternoon.
May I ask how long you've been on the force?
I think just under 12 years now.
And you've been assigned to the Vice Department for how long?
Just about 6 years, maybe a little over 6 years.
What is Vice Department about?
Narcotics, we investigate narcotics investigations.
Okay, I guess when we're talking Vice, are you typically in your uniform there trying to just bust people with your uniform, or is there other...
No, we're usually in plain clothes.
And can we agree that when you're in the Vice Department, as a Vice officer, you're expected to engage in at least a little bit of deceit to get to the ends that you're trying to get to?
Judge, objection. This is no relevance to his testimony.
The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
Judge, this is credibility.
Judge, again, there's no impeachment in this.
The objection is sustained.
Would you agree with me that part of your job is you're taught to lie when you're in vice?
Judge, objection, it's the same question.
The objection is sustained.
So your testimony is that you don't know of any pigs who have eaten anything other than fruits and vegetables?
Fruits, plants, yeah, maybe grubs.
You don't know of them eating dogs or any other kind of carnivore?
In my experience, no.
So if there are journal articles in prestigious forensic journals that cite pigs eating human remains, would that be a surprise to you then?
No, I've read it before. I'm telling you what I experienced.
Oh, okay. So you know that pigs are carnivores, and in addition to it, you testified knowing about, at least on direct, that they eat. You know that they eat rotting carcasses?
No, I don't know that. I've never experienced that.
Well, you've read it though, right? Or
Yeah,
you've
I've
heard
read it.
about it, right?
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any evidence that Stephen Capobianco was in that area?
Judge, objection, it's beyond the scope.
No.
What are you trying to
The
prove?
pig hunter, none of Stephen Capobianco.
What's the relevance of this if there's no evidence showing he was
Judge,
there?
objection, that's
The,
appropriate.
I will sustain the objection as being beyond the
Thank you.
scope of the examination, the direct examination.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you this. When was the first time that you spoke with Mr. Rivera about pig activity out there at Wailuku Bay in that area?
Maybe last week, I think.
Okay, so it wasn't like back in February of 2014, before Detective Liu determined that this was a dismemberment. You guys weren't
Judge,
discussing,
objection, this calls for speculation
you
and
guys
hearsay.
weren't talking about it
Hold on.
back then, right?
The question calls for speculation and hearsay.
The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
So this isn't something that, in the course of your investigation back in February of 2014, you took notice of, that there were no animal activities, you wrote did you write a report about that?
No.
Okay, so this is just something that basically Mr. Rivera called you on the other, when was this?
Sometime last week.
Okay, I don't know.
Redirect
Thank you,
examination.
Your Honor. Does any of this change what you testified as a pig hunter?
Not at all.
And with, the defense lawyer brought up dogs. Have you ever observed at any time you're doing the wild boar pig hunting, your dogs being attacked by pigs?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
It's like a fight. They're fighting pretty much for their life, right? So it's real chaotic. Yeah.
And have any of your dogs ever been injured?
Yes.
And can you describe the injuries?
It's usually real brutal injuries. The dogs get really torn up from the tusk or from the teeth. Yeah, so it's a lot of, when they're badly injured, it's usually really bad, you know.
Is it fatal for the dogs?
Yeah, I've lost a couple of dogs.
And when you say it's a real battle, a real fight, is when there is I guess, battle between the wild boar and your dogs. Could you describe the area where they're fighting? Is it neat, clean, or does it?
No, it's a mess. It's a chaotic situation, you know. So they're fighting, and everything is trampled or, you know, in dismay.
Now, you said you've heard about pigs, I guess, eating in addition to animals, humans. Is that correct? Or
Yeah,
have you ever of pigs eating
I've definitely
humans?
heard that before. Yeah.
Okay. Was that here on Maui?
No, not to my knowledge. No.
Okay. When you say you've read or heard about that, where has that been?
Like internet or, you know, people talking about it, but I've never experienced on my experience anything like that.
Thank you, officer. No further questions.
Free cross-examination.
No further questions, thank you.
Are there any juror questions?
Yes, sir.
Counsel, please approach. I have a question that I'm going to read to you, and after I read the question, you can then answer the question, all right?
Okay.
And if you'd like me to read the question again, please let me know, and I'll be happy to do that. The question simply reads, how do you spell your name? Please speak slowly. All right, you may answer the question.
Last name?
Maybe you should...
Brandon Rodriguez is Brandon. Rodriguez is Rodrigues.
Anybody want that repeated? All right, everybody got that? All right. Thank you.
I have no questions.
Mr. Upman?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, thank you. You are excused. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and, am I correct in understanding these are the witnesses you have?
Judge, we may have one other, but not scheduled for today.
May we address that before we adjourn?
We should dismiss the adjournment
Well,
first.
what I'll do is I will, I'll excuse the jurors. They have, at least two of them have travel requirements. So, all right then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we will be adjourning. At least we'll be excusing you for the day. Thank you very much for your service as jurors. I'll be asking you to return on Monday, November 28th, 2016 at 10 a.m. Please keep in mind my cautionary instructions. They remain in effect. And they're very important, so please keep all of those cautionary instructions in mind. And that includes not discussing the case among yourselves. And thank you very much for your service as jurors throughout the...
I'm sorry, John, before we release the jury, I would like to make a request that the court...
Wait, just a second, all right. Why don't you approach it, because I'm not sure what you're going to discuss. keep in mind my cautionary instructions, they remain in effect. And I thank you very much for your service as jurist throughout the trial of the case, and I wish all of you and your families the best during this Thanksgiving season. So, and I thank you very much for all of your service. Thank you so much. You've been outstanding, and I sincerely appreciate all of your efforts. Happy Thanksgiving, and you are excused. All right.
So is he how's he gonna
And how about the
Well, she said
well, this. All right, we will adjourn for the day. There being no further business today. Thank you.
Can we get an offer of proof about who is one possible witness maybe?
Mr. Rivera.
Your Honor, the state is trying to, from last week, Friday, we were able to make contact with the Wailuku Department. And right now, we're still waiting to hear from them if they are available next week. It's my understanding one may not be, and we may not be able to call that witness, but other than this, I don't have her CV or anything at this point, other than her name. What's her name? And her name is Holly Latham, Lathan.
I just had a witness on blood patterns.
She's not an expert on blood patterns.
When you say she, you're referring to Mr. Rivera. When you say she, you're referring to the next witness.
That's correct, Your Honor.
I see.
No, I think he was talking about Dr. Dale Weiss not being a blood pattern expert.
Yes, when I said she's not a blood pattern expert, I was referring to Dr. Diawis. She herself says she's not a blood pattern per se expert, but as a forensic pathologist, she does look at certain blood patterns. The other person, Holly Latham, is a blood pattern expert on textiles or cloth.
Well, we'll see, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.